The social anthropologists categorize different societies according to their primary means of subsistence, the ability of the group to provide for food, clothing, and shelter. We have hunter-gatherer societies, nomadic pastoral societies of early man, farming societies, and a more intensive agricultural society which has come to be known as civilization. Of interest and useful for understanding the differences between Yaakov and Esav would be the distinction between the hunter-gatherer and the farming society. The hunter-gatherer was involved in direct procurement of edible plants and animals from the wild and had no interest in their domestication, and therefore his life involved moving from location to location depending on the availability of food. For obvious reasons, the farmer-breeder was tied to the land and would only move to another location if circumstances forced him to do so. Present-day thinking has moved away from a linear evolution from the hunter-gatherer to the farmer in favor of an acceptance that the demarcation between the hunter-gatherer and other societies is no longer as clear-cut as was thought, as many contemporary societies use a combination of both strategies to obtain the food required to sustain themselves. Aligning the Torah account of man's development with that of the social scientists would be at best a highly speculative activity, but perhaps we can use some of the tools and concepts developed in the social sciences and apply them to certain aspects of the text. For example, we are told that Yaakov and Esav, as they matured into adulthood, adopted very different paths in life. Vayehi Esav ish yodei tzayid ish sadeh. He was a hunter, a man of the fields. V'Yaakov ish tam, Yoshev ohalim, a polar opposite. And without getting into the midrashic interpretations for the ish tam descriptive, Yaakov was one who did not move from place to place, was not an outdoors man, and appeared not to be the adventurous type. At 65 he undertook his first major journey away from home, but as with the farmer-breeder, did so under duress. We are told that during the time that he spent in Haran, Vayifrotz ha'ish me'od me'od, he became exceptionally successful in his involvement with primarily as a shepherd. Vayehi lo tzon rabot, not just flocks of sheep, but many flocks of sheep. Shvachot v'avadim, to tend to those flocks, and gmalim v'chamorim, camels and donkeys. We can speculate and suggest that Esav was the equivalent of in his day, a modern hunter-gatherer, where Yaakov would have been the farmer-breeder, and as such very much linked to the land. Eventually Yaakov returns home. There's a reconciliation between himself and Esav, and the Chumash testifies that on account of the fact that Rechusham Rav, both Esav and Yaakov each had extensive holdings, and that Velo Yachla Eretz Migorehem Laseit Otam, the land was not able to accommodate them both, and one of them would need to resettle elsewhere. And we can speculate on the discussion that might have taken place between Yaakov and Esav. Esav would have argued that Yaakov has been away for 34 years, and therefore, if one of them had to go elsewhere, it should be Yaakov. Yaakov, on the other hand, would present the following argument. Esav is primarily a hunter-gatherer. He moves from place to place, whereas he, Yaakov, as a farmer-breeder, is tied to the land, and as such, his claim to remain in Eretz Canaan was more justifiable than that of his brother Esav.